Good evening, and welcome to CoJoH Media News Views. I'm Colin J. Henry. Tonight, global markets are in turmoil after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Trump's global tariffs, only for the president to immediately impose new ones. Tensions are escalating in the Middle East as the U.S. and Iran are set for last-ditch nuclear talks in Geneva, amid a major American military buildup. And a historic blizzard is paralyzing the U.S. Northeast, with millions under emergency warnings. We'll have those stories and more right after this. The CoJoH Music Germany Timeless Horizons album and relaxation video now have a companion book which is available on Amazon and Kindle. Full details are available through scanning the QR code shown. Now back to news views. Welcome back. We begin tonight in Washington, where a dramatic showdown between the White House and the Supreme Court has sent shockwaves through the global economy. On Friday, the Supreme Court delivered a landmark 6-3 ruling, striking down President Trump's sweeping global tariffs. The court found that the president had exceeded his authority by using emergency powers to impose the levies. But the victory for free trade advocates was short-lived. President Trump immediately lashed out at the court and, in an unprecedented move, announced a new 10% global tariff, which he then raised to 15% over the weekend. This time, the president is using a different legal justification. Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, which allows for temporary tariffs of up to 15% for 150 days. The new tariffs are set to take effect tomorrow, February 24th. The move has thrown international markets into chaos. The European Union has paused a major trade deal with the U.S., seeking clarity on the new tariffs. Asian markets tumbled in early trading, and Wall Street is bracing for a volatile week. China has called on the United States to lift what it calls unilateral tariffs. Business leaders and economists are warning of rising costs for consumers and a potential global recession. The Supreme Court's decision was a rare rebuke of presidential trade authority. Writing for the majority, the justices found that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which President Trump had invoked to justify the tariffs, was never intended to be used as a tool for broad trade policy. The three dissenting justices argued that the president should have wide latitude on matters of national economic security. The immediate economic fallout has been severe. European markets opened sharply lower on Monday, with the FTSE, DAX, and FTSE 40 all posting significant losses. The European Union announced it would pause ongoing trade negotiations with Washington until the situation becomes clearer. EU trade officials said they cannot negotiate in good faith when the rules keep changing overnight. In Asia, Japan's Nikkei index fell more than 2%, while China's Shanghai Composite dropped by a similar margin. Chinese officials issued a strongly worded statement calling on the United States to, quote, respect the rules-based international trading system and lift its unilateral tariffs immediately. For American consumers, economists warn that the new 15% tariffs could add hundreds of dollars per year to the average household's spending on imported goods, from electronics to clothing to food products. Small business owners who rely on imported materials are particularly concerned about the impact on their bottom line. Next, now to the Middle East, where fears of a new war are growing. The United States and Iran are scheduled to hold a high-stakes meeting in Geneva on Thursday to discuss a new nuclear proposal. U.S. officials have described this as the last chance for a diplomatic solution before President Trump potentially orders a joint U.S.-Israeli military operation. Sources say that such an operation could directly target Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. The talks come as the U.S. has significantly increased its military presence in the region, deploying 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, led by the USS Gerald Ford and the USS Abraham Lincoln. Meanwhile, anti-government protests have once again erupted on university campuses in Tehran and the city of Mashhad. The Iranian government has responded with a harsh crackdown, arresting an estimated 40,000 people in connection with last month's widespread demonstrations. Iran's government says it is ready for talks, but will defend itself against any aggression. The military buildup in the Persian Gulf is the largest American naval deployment to the region in over 2 decades. In addition to the 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, the Pentagon has moved additional fighter squadrons, B-2 stealth bombers, and missile defense systems to bases across the Gulf states. Military analysts say the positioning suggests preparations for a sustained air campaign, not merely a show of force. The diplomatic track, however, remains alive. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff has been shuttling between capitals, and Thursday's meeting in Geneva is seen as a critical juncture. The American proposal reportedly calls for Iran to dismantle its uranium enrichment program in exchange for phased sanctions relief. Iranian officials have publicly rejected what they call capitulation demands, but have agreed to attend the talks. Inside Iran, the political situation is increasingly volatile. Last month's anti-government protests, the largest since the 2022 uprising, were met with a brutal crackdown. Human rights organizations report that security forces used live ammunition against demonstrators in multiple cities. The arrest of 40,000 people has drawn widespread international condemnation. Student protesters, wearing black to mourn those killed, have continued to demonstrate despite the risks, demanding both political reform and an end to the nuclear standoff. Next, tomorrow, February 24th, marks a grim milestone, the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The human cost of the war continues to mount. According to the United Nations, 2,514 civilians were killed, and more than 12,000 were injured in 2025 alone, a 31% increase over the previous year. An estimated 3.7 million people remain internally displaced within Ukraine. Russia's relentless attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure have left thousands without electricity, heat, and water, particularly during the harsh winter months. UN humanitarians say that Ukrainian women, in particular, are at a breaking point. Rallies and vigils are being held across the globe to mark the anniversary and to call for a lasting peace. 4 years into the conflict, the toll on Ukraine is staggering. The United Nations estimates that the war has caused hundreds of billions of dollars in damage to the country's infrastructure. Russia has systematically targeted Ukraine's energy grid, destroying a significant proportion of the country's power generation capacity. This winter has been particularly brutal, with rolling blackouts affecting millions of Ukrainians. On the battlefield, Russian forces continue to press their offensive, conducting large combined strike packages against Ukrainian positions. Ukrainian forces, however, continue to hold defensive lines and have pushed back Russian advances in several sectors. President Zelensky, in a recent interview, acknowledged the enormous strain on his country, but vowed that Ukraine would not surrender. The humanitarian situation remains dire. Nearly 300,000 Ukrainians have sought refuge in Canada alone, and millions more are scattered across Europe. The European Union's Ursula von der Leyen marked the eve of the anniversary by raising the Ukrainian flag and reaffirming Europe's commitment to supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes. Candlelight vigils and rallies are planned in cities from London to Tokyo, from Ottawa to Sydney, as the world reflects on 4 years of Europe's largest conflict since the Second World War. Next, here in the United States, a historic blizzard, dubbed the Blizzard of 2026, is battering the Northeast. A powerful bomb cyclone is burying the Mid-Atlantic and New England regions under feet of snow. Providence, Rhode Island, has reported an astonishing 36 inches of snow. More than 40 million Americans are currently under blizzard warnings, with 5 states having declared a state of emergency. The storm has caused widespread power outages, with nearly 100,000 customers in New Jersey alone without electricity. Major cities like Philadelphia, New York, and Boston are paralyzed, with travel bans in effect. The storm has been blamed for at least 2 deaths. The storm, unofficially named Winter Storm Hernando by the Weather Channel, is being compared to some of the most devastating blizzards in American history. The bomb cyclone intensified rapidly as it moved up the eastern seaboard, bringing sustained winds of over 50 miles per hour and creating near-zero visibility in many areas. In New York City, Mayor Adams declared a snow emergency and urged residents to stay indoors. The city's subway system was partially shut down, and all 3 major airports, JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark, suspended operations. In Philadelphia, the snow accumulation exceeded 2 feet, collapsing several structures and trapping motorists on highways. New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill issued a statewide state of emergency, with the National Guard deployed to assist with rescue operations. Power crews from as far away as the Midwest have been called in to help restore electricity to the nearly 200,000 customers across 9 states who have lost power. The storm is expected to continue through Monday evening before moving out to sea. Forecasters warn that the cleanup will take days, and that dangerously cold temperatures following the storm could create life-threatening conditions for those still without heat and power. Next, turning to Mexico, a major blow has been dealt to one of the country's most powerful drug cartels. On Sunday, the Mexican military, with intelligence support from the United States, killed Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, the notorious leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, better known as El Mencho. The U.S. had a $15 million bounty on his head. The killing has sparked a wave of retaliatory violence. At least 25 members of the Mexican National Guard have been killed in reprisal attacks. Violence has erupted in several cities, including Guadalajara and the popular tourist destination of Puerto Vallarta, where vehicles were set on fire and airlines have canceled flights, stranding tourists. The U.S. Embassy has urged American citizens in the affected areas to shelter in place. El Mencho had been one of the most wanted drug lords in the world. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, which he founded, is designated as a terrorist organization by the United States and has been responsible for much of the fentanyl trafficking into North America. The operation to kill him was the result of months of intelligence gathering, with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration providing critical surveillance data to the Mexican military. In the aftermath, Air Canada, Delta, American Airlines, and Alaska Airlines all announced the cancellation of flights to and from Puerto Vallarta's airport, citing the ongoing security situation. Tourists were left stranded in hotels as gunfire was reported in the streets. In Guadalajara, the state capital of Jalisco, armed men reportedly set a gas station ablaze. Security analysts warn that the power vacuum left by El Mencho's death could trigger a prolonged period of intercartel violence as rival factions compete for control of lucrative trafficking routes. Next, in the world of technology, a massive new wave of investment is set to reshape our future. The tech giants, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft, are collectively investing an estimated $650 billion into artificial intelligence in 2026. This staggering sum is primarily being poured into building out the massive data center infrastructure required to power the next generation of AI. This investment is expected to accelerate the integration of AI into nearly every aspect of our lives, from our smartphones and apps to our workplaces. This comes as new AI tools are demonstrating the ability to design genomes, and a recent AI breakthrough could even lead to the replacement of rare earth magnets in many technologies. However, this rapid advancement is not without its costs, as major companies, including Amazon, Microsoft, and General Motors have announced mass layoffs, with many jobs being replaced by AI. According to a report by Bridgewater Associates, the scale of this investment is comparable to the early days of cloud computing, but at a pace never before seen in the technology sector. The $650 billion is being directed primarily toward building massive new data centers, manufacturing specialized AI chips, and developing the power infrastructure needed to run these energy-hungry facilities. Experts at Johns Hopkins University warn that while AI promises enormous productivity gains, the displacement of human workers is accelerating faster than new jobs are being created, raising urgent questions about the future of work. Next, the World Health Organization is warning of a growing global cholera crisis. In January alone, nearly 17,000 new cases of cholera were reported in 19 countries across 3 WHO regions. The Democratic Republic of Congo is currently battling a severe epidemic in the city of CoJoH, fueled by displacement, limited access to clean water, and a fragile healthcare system. In response to the growing threat, global production of the oral cholera vaccine has been ramped up, from 30 million doses in 2022 to 80 million in 2025. The WHO is also monitoring other health threats, including a confirmed fatal case of Nipah virus in Bangladesh earlier this month. Doctors Without Borders reports that the situation in eastern Congo is particularly dire. In the city of CoJoH, displacement caused by ongoing armed conflict, combined with limited access to clean water and a fragile healthcare system, has created what aid workers describe as the worst cholera epidemic in the area in 5 years. Meanwhile, countries around the world are also negotiating a key annex to a new global pandemic agreement, with the WHO describing the talks as a sign of renewed global commitment to pandemic preparedness. Next, and finally, a stark warning on climate change from the European Union's own scientific advisors. The EU's Climate Advisory Board has urged member countries to prepare for a catastrophic 3 degrees Celsius of global warming. The board described the task of keeping Europe safe from the consequences of such a temperature rise as daunting but doable. The warning comes as new research shows that climate change is accelerating, while nature's ability to slow it down is diminishing. Scientists are particularly concerned about the rapid warming of Antarctica, which could have disastrous consequences for global sea levels. Researchers at Queen Mary University of London have published new findings showing that while the planet warms at an accelerating rate, many ecosystems are responding more slowly than expected, creating a dangerous mismatch between the speed of climate change and nature's ability to adapt. Meanwhile, the repeal of the U.S. endangerment finding under the current administration is expected to significantly impact American emissions targets, further complicating global efforts to limit warming. Scientists have modeled both best and worst-case scenarios for Antarctica, and warn that without urgent action, the consequences for coastal cities around the world could be catastrophic within decades. Next, and that's our program for tonight. I'm Colin J. Henry. Thanks for joining us. From all of us here at CoJoH Media News Views, good night.